So I had a bit of a disaster last month and it decimated my savings. Today I'm sharing my personal financial report with you, my income, my outgoings for last month. This is the very first month of me reporting my income and expenditure. My goal is to retire early in 6 years' time. So every month I'm going to report my finances to you. It keeps me accountable and it helps you to see how I'm saving for my early retirement on a minimum wage. I had previously done a budget, which was what I planned to spend each month. And I did this at the end of last year. So now this is the first month where I'm actually showing, did I actually manage to stick to my budget? And I don't know about you, but in the past, I have had terrible trouble actually sticking to a budget. But I do feel now that I'm much more sensible when it comes to sticking to a budget. But the thing is, life happens to everybody. Unexpected things crop up all the time. And in January, life really happened to me in a big way. And what happened really took the biscuit. I'll share more about that at the end of the video. But what I'm going to do in a minute is delve into my numbers. I'm going to show you what I actually spent, my income, my expenditure, and my sinking fund expenditure. A sinking fund is money that you save for the purpose of spending. So I had a sinking fund already, and thank goodness I did because I really needed it last month. We're now in February. I'm sharing last month's income report with you, and it's actually light at 7 o'clock in the morning. This makes me feel so happy. It has been torrential rain for such a long time, but these light mornings, they're just filling me with hope because spring is almost here. So let me dive into the numbers. So let's dive into my January monthly finance tracker, and I'll show you my income and expenditure and also my sinking fund, because that's where all the drama happened, in my sinking fund this month. So let's have a look at January. Let's have a look at income to start with. So I got my very first full-time salary. I did get paid in December, but it was only a part of the month. So now I've got my full salary, which is amazing, and is actually higher than I expected because I'm not paying tax at the moment because we're very close to the end of the tax year. The HMRC is not taking tax off me, so this will go down. So this is an extra bonus that I won't be getting. It will go down to what was there to start with. So 1,860 in my full-time salary, pretty much minimum wage salary. And then I got child benefit, 173. My ex, the kid's dad, paid me child maintenance, 236. My partner contributed £750 to the bills. I switched to a money saving expert fuel switch with Octopus and they gave me £20. So that was pretty amazing, as well as saving money on my fuel. And I got £25.42 in bank interest because I've got a fair bit in my savings now. Because we got an offer in the house as part of the divorce settlement, I had put in the settlement that I wanted £10,000 paid to me as soon as we got an offer because I knew that I would need that for moving expenses. So because I've got that £10,000 in the savings, which will be spent at some point, I'm making more interest, which is pretty nice. And then after we move, I'll probably keep a fair amount in the savings, so hopefully this will continue. Now let's look at expenditure. So fixed expenditure to start with. So I'm paying half of the mortgage at the moment, but it's on a variable tracker rate, so it keeps going up and down. So this unfortunately was higher than expected, £761, which is half of the mortgage. That will only be until the house is officially sold. We've got an offer, so hopefully that will all go through no problem. Council tax, £214 a month. Water, £50, gas and electric, budgeted £150, but it was £170. This is December's amount of money because it was getting colder and colder. I pay more in the winter and less in summer. It averages out to £150. £15 TV license, £50 for the broadband and TV package. That includes Netflix. My partner wants that. He's more into TV than me. Den plan, because I've got so many teeth problems, it actually saves me money by paying for a den plan each month. Gym membership, £34. I do make use of it. I go to the gym 3 times a week. Mobile phone, £5.25. I'm just on a rolling month contract. I pay for my phone outright, so this is why it's so cheap. I have everything I need with that. Unlimited calls, unlimited texts, and enough data that keeps me going. So why do I need to pay more? I paid my window cleaner the final amount because we've got an offer on the house now. I'm not going to keep paying for a window cleaner, so I'm not going to pay ever again for a window cleaner. and the kids' pocket money. They earn pocket money when they do chores. So my daughter earns less than my son because he's extremely tidy. His bedroom's always tidy, so he gets his pocket money for that. But my daughter is the complete opposite. Poor thing. She just can't help but make a mess. She does try really hard though. So she gets less pocket money. Let me know what you think about the pocket money situation in the comments below. Do you do the similar things with your kids? Did you do similar things? Did you tie pocket money to chores? So now we're moving on to variable expenses. I actually had more in my variable expenses before in my budget, but I've added more to my sinking fund now because I feel like with the kids, I tend to spend most of their money in the summer. Like I spend an absolute fortune. Both of their birthdays are in the summer, and I tend to replace a lot of their clothes in the summer. So it just didn't make sense for me to have this as a variable expenditure because I really need to be saving that and spending it in the summer. So I've not got that many things in my variable expenditure anymore. Food shopping. I budgeted £600. There's 4 of us. 2 kids, 2 adults. I actually spent £673, slightly over budget, but I'm not too bothered about this because I did end up going shopping for 5 weeks. So it was a 5-week month on the day that I go shopping. So I'm actually quite happy. Would have been under budget if it wasn't for the 5-week spend. Car fuel. I was actually quite annoyed about this because I budget £100 and still spent £72 despite not having the car the entire month of January and a little bit in December, a little bit in February, 6 weeks in total. Didn't have a car apart from about 1 week where I had a courtesy car, which was so annoying. So I put £10 in the courtesy car of petrol. I paid for a taxi to pick up the courtesy car because I was in a rush. So I just thought I'll put that down for fuel. And then I put £42 in my own car to fill up the tank because they used the whole tank doing all of these trial runs in the garages. And then as soon as I filled up the tank, it broke down again and it was straight back to the garage. And then I had to pay more money to fill up the courtesy car again. So that was really annoying. So I thought I would, for a long time in January, I didn't spend any money on fuel. And then all of a sudden £72 went out. Personal budget, I allocate £50 for whatever I want to spend. So I bought some essential oil, car diffusers, inhalers and roll-ons to help everybody's health in the house, especially with bugs and pains, aches, that kind of thing. That's what I do to keep everybody healthy. So I spent that out of my own budget. Entertainment. I budget £100 a month and I only spent 46, which is actually a world record for me. I usually spend pretty much all my budget every month, but probably because I didn't have the car, I couldn't actually go anywhere. But I did manage to get back to my rock and roll because thankfully a friend is giving me a lift to my rock and roll lessons and dances, which is absolutely fantastic. But I do chip in petrol money, so I just add this into the cost. So these costs are actually inflated because this is me chipping in for petrol money as well. So I went to a rock and roll dance. I ended up going to Costa with a client, but I decided I'm never going to do that again. So just because she wanted to go doesn't mean I have to spend money. It wasn't my choice to go to Costa, so I'm not going to do that again. Lesson learned. Only £2, but these £2 can add up if you did that every day of the week. More rock and roll dance classes. Then I went to rock and roll dance, more dance classes, bought a drink at the rock and roll dance, and then back to dance classes. I don't really buy drinks. I get myself a pint of free water most of the time because if I've already paid to get in and I don't drink alcohol and all I want is something flat and I don't really want all the sugar around my teeth all night, I'm very, very fussy. So there's nothing left for me to do but drink free tap water. So look how many times I went out and look how much I spent. So I'm definitely not having a miserable life. I am having a whale of a time. £8 on health and personal care. I went to the hairdressers. I've decided I'm only going to go to the hairdressers once every 3 months now. So I'm going to spend £60 once every 3 months. And then the other time I'm just going to do my roots. So this was me going to the hairdressers. So I haven't really blown the budget because the next 2 months I'm not going to go to the hairdressers. So I was under budget for my variable expenses. I was also pretty much on point for my fixed expenses as well. Then I've got my sinking fund, which is money that I put aside every single month because I know I'm going to spend it at other points in the year. I put £90 away for spending on the kids, school trips, clubs, clothing, equipment, that kind of thing. I only buy one TV subscription, which is Channel 4 to get rid of the adverts. I don't really watch much TV. That's pretty much the only TV I watch. Home insurance, saving up for a new car, £90 a month. Saving up for car tax, car insurance, car MOTs and service, car repairs, £32 for birthdays, £32 for Christmas, £50 a month saving towards holidays, and £50 a month saving towards miscellaneous and emergency cash use, of which there is always a lot of. Used to be around £200 a month, but I don't have the budget to save £200 a month at the moment. But I probably would have done if I didn't put it into my investments, but I just don't want to stop paying money into my investments, even though my budget is really tight at the moment. So despite me having a really tight budget and high mortgage costs, because I'm in the transition of moving house, I've still put £100 into my SIP and £100 into my cash ISA. So my total expenditure before I put any money into savings and investments was £2,263, but this is for a household of 4 people. And my partner pays half of the bills, but not half of the children's cost, because it's not his kids. My ex pays for that with his maintenance. And here is my total expenditure before investments, £2,700. And this is my total expenditure including savings and investments, £2,900. So the total money I received was £3,000, and the total money that I spent and allocated to savings for spending and investment was £2,900, leaving me a surplus of £141, pretty much left that in the current account. So this I'm very happy with. I'm very happy with how I stick to the budget, even being under budget and saving money, which is amazing. But the disaster happened in the sinking fund. So let's have a look at the sinking fund. So I've adjusted my sinking fund quite a lot. So what I've done is I've added this column in, which is the balance carried forward, because at the start of the year, I've still got some money saved in every single pot, which I haven't spent yet. So I put the starting balance here. So in January, I had £3,696 already allocated to the sinking fund. And this is how much I am saving in every single pot every single month. So this is how much I saved into my sinking fund in January. Saved £459 in my sinking fund, which is a pretty large amount, but is needed. So that brought my sinking fund to £4,156, which sounds absolutely amazing. But then disaster struck. This is what I spent in January on the kids. I only spent £9. I don't spend that much on the kids during the winter. I bought the kids' food tech ingredients and some blank cards because they're both very arty and they like to make cards for people. And the other small amount that I spent was miscellaneous emergency cash. I bought some food storage containers for £10.99. So didn't spend much out of my miscellaneous pot, but unfortunately spent £1,991 on the car. Over £2,000 in total on car repairs in this time period. 2 ignition coils, a further 2 ignition coils and the timing chain kit, meaning that I spent a total of £2,000. So previously in the sinking fund, £3,696. I added £459 that month, but spent £2,000. So that meant that this particular month I was in a deficit of £1,500, but still had a total of £2,144 in my sinking fund, which is why I'm so thankful that I have a sinking fund, because although I did get the tax rebate, I haven't received it yet, so I wouldn't have been able to allocate money to this. And actually, I did spend the car repairs on my credit card, so technically didn't take it out of my bank, but I would have had to if I didn't have that money coming in. So I've had to allocate it somewhere because the money isn't there to pay for it at the moment. So when I get that £1,800, I will just add that in here as an extra income into that sinking fund that particular month, and that will square everything off again. So I've got some totals at the end. So I've got how much I saved into that pot every single month, the average I saved, how much I'm supposed to be saving that year, the amount I've still got to save that year. Then I've got my expenditure, so how much I've spent this year so far in each individual pot. So I actually ended up allocating the car repairs, not to the car repairs budget because I didn't have enough money in there, but to the new car fund because I did almost have enough money in the new car fund, so I put it in there to start with. So that's just life, isn't it? If you save money for a new car and then your car dies and it costs you £2,000, you don't have money for a new car anymore. That's how life happens. So then I've got the average that I've spent per month, then I've got my annual spending budget, and then I've got the amount that's left in my fund. So all the other funds have a nice decent amount left, but the new car fund only has, well, it has nothing left. It has a minus amount, £191 in a deficit, which will be saved in the next couple of months if it wasn't for that tax rebate. And then there would be nothing in there for a new car. But thankfully for the tax rebate, I think I'll still be on track. So that's how I deal with my big expenditure. They come out of my sinking fund. I don't put them in my monthly finance tracker anymore. I used to put them in there and it would just skew everything. It just makes me always look like I can't stick to the budget because there's always big things that crop up. And that's why I've got this sinking fund. I'm saving into miscellaneous because there's always emergency things that crop up every single month. But I wanted my budget to look nice and clean. And yes, I've stuck to my budget. I'm doing really well. It really gives you a good feeling when you've stuck to your budget. And it gives you a better feeling when you've been prepared and you've been sensible and you've put that money away and you actually have that money to spend. That is such a good feeling. So all in all, disaster of a month with the sinking fund. But I'm really happy that I not only stuck to my budget, but saved a surplus as well. Because all of this is really needed as we move house. So what did you think about my income and my expenditure? My car was driving me absolutely insane last month. This drama went on for 6 weeks. It started on the 31st of December on New Year's Eve, which was really annoying because I had plans and I was going to be driving that night. So my car broke down. This was actually the second time it had broken down. It had broken down in the summer. It got taken to a garage, they fitted an ignition coil, and it seemed absolutely fine. Fast forward to December, it breaks down again. Same problem, feels exactly the same kind of problem. The RAC come out again, they do a diagnostic report, and they say, it's another ignition coil, that's the problem. So the garage merrily fixes the ignition coil, gives me the car back, and then a few days later, guess what happens? The car breaks down again, a third breakdown. So my loyal garage that I've been using for 6 years, never really had a problem with them. They take the car in and they say, well, it obviously wasn't the ignition coil. We need to look a bit further into it, but we don't really know what the problem is because it's an intermittent problem. The engine, it keeps failing, cutting out, and then all of a sudden it's working perfectly again and nothing's coming up in the diagnostics. We don't know what's wrong with it. We're just going to have to guess. So they started doing some guesswork, and first of all, they replaced the fuel pump. Then they kept it in a bit longer. They needed to take it for some long runs. I finally thought it was fixed, and then they tell me there's been issues again. More error messages are coming up on the car. And I say to them, well, I don't want to pay for the fuel pump because it obviously hasn't fitted the problem. So they say, okay, we're going to take out the fuel pump and put your old one back in. And I say, fine, but what's going to fix the problem? And they say to me, well, we do know of something that actually needs to be fixed, and that's your timing chain is completely worn down. And they say, well, we need to fix the timing chain. It's going to be £650 to fit the whole kit, but we still don't know if that's going to fix the problem. And I say, well, if it needs to be done, just do it anyway, and then we'll just have to hope for the best. So I leave the car in the garage. I keep phoning them. I phone them every single morning. I say, what's the update for me? And they say, we're working on it. And this goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then finally, I just got so fed up of them saying, we're working on it. I went down to the garage. I went into the garage and they weren't working on it. My car was sat outside in the car park and they were working on other cars. And I said, you're not working on my car. You've had my car for weeks and you haven't done anything to it. And I say, I want to take it away now. And he says, you can't, there's bits missing. I say, what bits are missing? They said, oh, we just need to fit a couple of bits from the engine. Come and pick it up tomorrow morning. So I came and picked the car up tomorrow morning. It drives fine. It feels like there's no issue. There's no warning lights coming onto the car. I take it into another garage after doing a lot of research, a garage that got some very good reviews. I tell them what the issue is. That same morning, they phoned me back and they said, we found the problem. The ignition coils that were put in back to front by the previous garage. So we've put them in the correct way and we've replaced 2 more of them. £200, job's done, car fixed. And I thought, thank goodness for that. But then something was niggling in the back of my mind and I said to them, the car has had this intermittent problem. Would you mind just keeping it for the weekend and just making sure that it actually is fixed this time? So one of the mechanics took it home and drove it around for that weekend. And unfortunately, on Monday morning, they came back to me and said, warning lights are back on the car. There's a problem. We need to look into this again. So they looked into it and they told me that the timing belt chain does actually need replaced. The previous garage didn't get around to doing it, despite telling me they were working on it. So they said, we need to replace the timing belt kit, but it's going to cost £1,600. And I was pretty horrified because the previous garage had quoted me £650, which I thought was a lot of money. I phoned round some other garages and they said because of the make and model of my car, this actually is a realistic price. The previous garage could have never done it for that price, so I don't know why they were quoting so cheap. So unfortunately, I had to say yes to paying this astronomical amount of money, which I could have bought a new car for that amount of money. But I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. I had to get it fixed, otherwise I wouldn't be able to sell it. And believe me, I wanted to sell this car by this point in time. I didn't want to have anything to do with this car ever again. So I agreed, fit the timing belt kit. A few days later, they fitted the kit. They tell me it's all fixed, everything is sorted. And I think, thank goodness for that. I trust this garage. They're a really big garage, good reputation. They actually gave me a courtesy car. So even though I'd been without a car for about 5 weeks at that point, I have to use my car for my work. I drive out and do visits in the community. I visit homeless people. And I've had to get a bus everywhere in rain that's absolutely torrential all month long, taking clients out on the bus, helping them get from here to there and everywhere. And it's not a very good first impression for my first month at work. And everybody's probably thinking, this woman is full of crap. What car is actually in the garage for 6 weeks? They probably just didn't believe a word of it. And it was really embarrassing. Because this is not a first impression that I want to be giving out on my first month of my brand new job, where I have to use my car for my work, because I'm not able to see that many clients because catching the bus takes forever. So I was very grateful when they gave me a courtesy car, but it was an old banger, and they said don't drive it out of the town. It felt like it was going to conk out any second, and I wasn't insured for taking clients around, so I still couldn't really use it for that purpose. At least I could take my kids to school, do my shopping, go to the gym, etc. without everything taking hours and hours and hours, which it does when you don't have a car. So they gave me the car back with a new timing chain. I thought, brilliant, everything's back to normal. Drove the car that night, did some shopping, dropped the kids off at school the next morning. On the way home from school, guess what happens? The car breaks down again for the 4th time. I just thought, this is getting ridiculous. It felt exactly the same problem, same warning lights came on, phoned the garage, they said bring it back in. They were really shocked, really confused. RAC came out again. He had all kinds of random diagnostics. He said, we've got this engine diagnostic, this could be very expensive. And I'm thinking, for goodness sake, I've already paid $2,000 out. What more could this car be costing me? So I took it back to the garage again. Back to the old banger, back to the courtesy car. Within a couple of days, they phoned me up again and said, your car is fixed. So I said, what have you done? And they said, we've done a software update. And they said, we promise this has definitely fixed the problem. And I thought, I've heard this before. Don't believe it. Don't trust this car. Don't trust anybody. Sick of the sight of cars at the moment. But at least they didn't charge me for the software update. So I've had the car back for about a week now. But it still just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel trustworthy. I'm in first gear and it's kind of juddering and kind of spluttering to get started. And in second gear, it's like sticking and jerking, and then it's going quiet, and it fills me with anxiety thinking every second it's going to conk out. So I don't trust the car anymore. I am definitely replacing the car, but I do need to wait until the house sells to free up the money to do that. My plan is that I am going to have a camper van, a small camper van, and it's going to be my daily runaround. I'm not going to have 2 cars, I'm just going to have the one van. And that's going to be like my second home. And I absolutely can't wait. I've started looking into it, where I'm going to get the van, potential conversions, or potentially buying a van. Not quite decided yet, but I do know I'm definitely having a van. So I'm just biding my time with this piece of junk, although it's not that old. It's only 2018 plate, so it shouldn't be dying like this. I've done yearly services, I've looked after it, I don't drive it that much. I drive it daily, just locally, I don't do that many miles in it. So that is the car saga. And that's my plan, is just to get rid of that car. But there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Because when I did my tax return, my accountant told me that I was actually due a tax rebate, the second one. I was due one for my business and one for my personal, because I had been working some of the year and not all of the year, so I was due a tax rebate. So I'd spent in total over £2,000 repairing this car, but very recently £1,800 to that garage, and guess how much the tax rebate is for? £1,800. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like somebody up there is looking down and laughing, or you could see it another way, as in giving a gift. Sometimes I feel like in life, you get a big bill and you think, what am I going to do? And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you randomly just get a pot of money given to you and it's exactly the same amount and you think, thank goodness. But if it happens the other way around, which it did this time, I knew about the tax rebate first. I knew that I was getting £1,800 tax rebate and I'm still waiting for it to be transferred into my bank account. And I thought, yes, £1,800, this would be brilliant towards moving costs and everything. And then you get a car bill for £1,800 and you think, ugh. That money was mine and now it's not mine. So it's so disappointing. If it happens the other way, you have the panic first and then you think, oh, thank goodness. But if it happens the way around where you get the money first, you think, oh, that was my money. You really get attached to that money. You really don't want to let it go. So instead of feeling grateful, oh, thank goodness I can pay that bill, you're like, oh, I don't want to part with my money because you've already attached yourself to the money. So that's how it happened for me. I knew I was getting the money first and then it's disappeared. Easy come, easy go. Well, that's life for you. Let me know in the comments, have you ever had anything like that happen where you've had a big bill and then you've suddenly got a pot of money that covers it, or the other way around? You've suddenly got given some money and then you've got given an expenditure and you thought, oh, well, that's me. I've got to spend that money on that now. It has happened to me all the way through my life. And this is why I do take risks with money and I don't worry too much about money. Yes, I do have pots of money saved for various things, which is very sensible to do. But in the same token, I am going to retire early because I feel like life has a way of looking after me. And yes, I'm going to take steps to look after myself, but I also feel like something about the way life works for me is that I am always taken care of and I have trust in that. That's a very spiritual viewpoint. Do you have any spiritual viewpoints like that? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so excited that I've now hit 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for everybody who has subscribed to my channel. And another exciting thing is I am very close to being monetized on YouTube. So thank you so much for watching all of my videos. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your comments and the time and the help that you've given me. Even the criticisms, I appreciate it all. So have an amazing week and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye bye.